Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to November's edition of Gravenhurst Planning Council. It is moved by Councillor Karen, second by Councillor Hunter. Be it resolved that the council agenda as presented on November 25th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Please vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest today? Councillor Hunter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Number 5, ZA 31-2025 Gravette.
Councillor Jorgensen?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I'll be declaring on the public meetings item 7 for Great Gulf Muskoka, as well as the bylaw L6 for the same.
Okay, thank you. We'll now go over to Councillor Johnston to please deliver our land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the First Peoples, who for thousands of years before us were and are still the keepers and caretakers of this land, where we now live and work, and in particular, the Chippewas of Rama, Wata Mohawk First Nations, and the Moon River Métis. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. We recognize all the generations of Indigenous people and their historic connection to this place, and we are grateful for the opportunity to gather here at this time. Miigwech.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. This afternoon, there are 7 public meetings scheduled for 1 concurrent official plan amendment and zoning amendment application and 6 alone zoning bylaw amendments. Application number ZA 30-2025 for Heeman and Nixon, application number OPA 02-2024 and ZA 28-2024 for the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association, application number ZA 33-2024 for Dove Barrow, application number ZA 25-2025 for Mandigo, application number ZA 31-2025 for Gravette, application number ZA 32-2025 for Mall, and application number ZA 33-2025 for Great Gulf Muskoka Limited. The Planning Act requires that a public meeting be held before council decides to adopt an official plan amendment or pass a zoning bylaw amendment. The public meeting serves 2 purposes. First, to present to council and the public the details and background to the proposal, and second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before council makes a decision. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for each public meeting. The Manager of Planning Services, Adam Agar, will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of public meeting was circulated. Staff will then advise of the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning amendment or official plan amendment and provide any additional information that is relevant to the application. Staff will further summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation, followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor or against a proposal. With regard to public participants, I will start with the list of those who have registered to speak remotely, followed by those who are present in the council chambers. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, staff, or anyone giving presentations. The proposed zoning bylaw amendments, with the exception of the official plan and zoning amendment for the Muldrew Lakes Association, Cottagers Association, will then be considered by council later this afternoon. If anyone from the public in the council chambers would like to request notification of the decision of the application, please complete the form provided on the table at the back. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to advise how, when, and to whom notice of the public meetings were circulated. Mr. Agar?
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of the public meetings concerning the standalone zoning bylaw amendments were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, that's 400 feet, of the properties subject to the proposed bylaw and emailed to applicable agencies. Included within the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal, a site plan, and a key map showing the location of the property in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Notice of the public meeting for the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment application were sent to the property owners abutting Muldrew Lake and adjacent properties.
Okay, so before I read my next paragraph, I'm going to ask the members of the public to please turn off your devices, silence them. Perfect segue, thank you. It is important to note that should council pass any bylaws this afternoon, there is a 20-day appeal period, during which time any person may appeal the decision of council. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or work commenced. Also, in the event there is an appeal and in order to keep advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, members of the public must request and be sent a copy of council's decision and the application. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application number ZA 30, 2025 for Heeman and Nixon. I will now ask the Manager of Planning Services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. The subject property is located on Muldrew Lake. The property is designated waterfront area in the Town of Gravenhurst official plan and is currently zoned residential waterfront RW-6C. The property fronts onto a narrow waterway on the lake. The property is narrow and deep lot that extends back to Peninsula Road but is accessed by a private road, Deepwater Drive, which bisects the lot. All the structures are located between Deepwater Drive and the lake. There's an existing dock with gazebo, a shoreline storage building, and a garage, and the replacement of a dwelling, which also includes decks and stairs being constructed presently. The dwelling is also located very close to the lake. And on screen, it's hard to see here, but you'll see the remains of a building that was here. There was an existing cottage on the property that was unfortunately destroyed by fire. The property slopes up steeply from the water and is characterized by bedrock outcroppings. Although much of the bedrock contains mature vegetation, many mature trees were also destroyed by the fire. As stated in the applicant's engineer report, significant variation in the topography and bedrock elevations are present throughout the site, and you'll see those later in site photos. The application was submitted in order to permit the maximum height of a dwelling to be 14.6 meters. For council's information, in 1991, a minor variance, being application A36, 1991, was granted and approved to recognize the height of a dwelling measuring 9.4 meters in height. Keep in mind that at that time, the zoning bylaw in effect measured height differently, and that was based on the average grade of the dwelling. So a 9.4 building height would be taller than a 9.4 meter building height today under the current regulations. Whereas now the zoning bylaw measures from the lowest existing grade on the water side. So before in 91, it was from average grade, and 9.4 meters was what was permitted. And now under the current regulations, it would have been 9.4 meters the way it was measured now. In February 2023, the dwelling unfortunately was totally destroyed by fire. The building permit was issued in 2024. That's permit GH 2024-207 to construct the replacement of the new dwelling on the same footprint and at the same height. In June of 2025, it was determined that the height of the dwelling under construction exceeded what was permitted and exceeded the approved building permit drawings. A surveyor was then retained by the applicant's project manager and confirmed the height of the dwelling that's currently under construction to be 14.6 meters under the current zoning bylaw definition. And again, just for everyone's information, that doesn't mean it's 5.2 meters taller than what was previously there. It's just the way height is measured now, and there will be clear photos for you to reference to show the difference in height. It does, however, though, mean that the dwelling does not comply, and the application before you is therefore required. Supporting materials also state that during construction, adjustments were made to the elevations of the foundation to suit the actual site conditions and the existing bedrock topography, therefore raising the overall height of the building. In support of the application, the planning justification report, an engineer's letter, and a surveyor's letter were all provided in support of the application. In situations where something's already built, staff must look at it if it's not there and apply the relevant planning principles. The reality is that the dwelling is higher than what was permitted in 1991 and almost double the height of what would be permitted today. There would appear to be two reasons for the height increase beyond what was previously approved. And the first reason, as described in the report and by the applicant's engineer, was the result of the raising foundation elevations. If the height of the foundation was not increased, then the wood framing of the building would have encroached onto the bedrock. The foundation contractor raised up the top of the foundation elevations such that the wood framing would be clear of the elevation of the existing bedrock. The increase of the elevation also facilitates the installation of adequate drainage around the foundation footings and permits airflow under the floor framing. Proper drainage and ventilation of the wood floor and wall framing conforming to the Ontario Building Code is imperative for the longevity of the structure. That was from the applicant's engineer. And the second reason appears to be an increase in height based on the roof when reviewing photos from what was previously existing and what was now under construction. While it is recognized that this is a very, very difficult situation as detailed in the staff report, from a planning perspective, staff are unable to support a 14.6 meter dwelling at a location of less than 5 meters from the lake. With respect to agency comments, the chief building official provided the comment that all work must meet the 2024 Ontario Building Code requirements. Fire and emergency services, no objection, subject to Ontario Fire Code and Building Code compliance. The deputy treasurer, no objections, and the district of Muskoka, no objections, and then noted that Mulder Lake is a vulnerable water body. In addition, 5 letters of support were received from neighboring property owners. This is just an elevation of what's currently under construction. And again, you can see the topography here, but we'll move into site photos. So fortunately, we benefit from pre-existing photography and video. So this is actually a video that's available on the Muskoka GeoHub. So we were able to reference what was previously there pre-fire to what's under construction now. So as you can see, that was 9.4 meters measured at average grade. You can see the stairs and the rock outcropping. This is now present day. This is looking west across from the dock towards the neighboring dwelling. You can see burnt tree stubs in the background, as well as some existing decking. This is presently the dwelling under construction. As noted in the staff report, it's also important to note here that it gives the appearance it's not 2 stories. You can see 2 different levels there on top of the foundation, plus the additional up on the 3rd deck. This is just looking across grade, again, just confirming there is the irregular grades and topography on site, the irregular rock forms. This is then moving up the slope, looking out towards the side profile of the dwelling and out towards Mulder Lake. This is then another angle into the dwelling. Here's another photo from the front facing out to the water. You can also see that they've needed to install a ramp that slopes upwards to now gain access into the cottage, where previously access was off of this stone pathway here. So it's understood and noted that the elevation has increased from previously where you would be granted access on the original cottage. This is looking then directly across the water to neighboring property owners. This is again just characterizing it as narrow waterway. I would want to take the time here to talk about, we have a large members from Mulder Lake here too. Please don't power wash your rocks. Rock landscapes do count towards natural landscapes so long as they're not power washed. So please do your part. Don't power wash your rock landscapes. They do count towards a natural vegetative buffer so long as they're not power washed. This is a compare and contrast to what was previous and to what's being proposed. And here is really where you can kind of see the difference. So I'll just draw your attention to this top of slope here, and you can see it's almost in line with the roof line here, versus if you go over to that rock on this side, you can now see the height deviation between the two. So I think this is really illustrative of the change between what was there and what was now. Understanding that both are significantly over what the norm of height would be, and understanding that this is a difficult situation, this clearly shows the difference between what was there and what's built now. So as detailed in the staff report, it is staff's opinion that the application is not appropriate and does not represent good planning. And as a result, staff are recommending that the application not be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ager. I will now ask if there are any comments by the applicant or their agent if they are attending in person. Okay, we just need your full name and mailing address, and followed by
Thank
your
you.
comments.
Thank you. Christine Loft of Loft Planning, Inc., 25 Maple Street, Collingwood, Ontario, L9Y 2P7. Thank you. So good afternoon, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, Council, staff, and those in attendance. My name is Christine Loft of Loft Planning, Inc., and I'm representing Integricon Property Restoration, who are the building contractors. With me today is Jill Brennan of Integricon Property Restoration, the landowners, Tanny Nixon and Robert Heeman, and Bobby Leppington of Design by Bobby. Next slide, please. So the subject lands are municipally known as 666 Deepwater Drive, town of Gravenhurst. The land has frontage on Peninsula Road and gains access from Deepwater Drive. The lots within the immediate area are generally the same width and stretch from the Muldrew Lake South shoreline north to Peninsula Road. The lot, and specifically the building footprint, is on the crest of a large bedrock outcrop. The site is well-treed with a mixed forest, and as you are aware, the original dwelling was destroyed by fire, and a new dwelling is now well under construction. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So the application before you proposes to rezone the lands to recognize an increased maximum permitted height of 16 meters. And as staff has pointed out, the height is at 14.55, but with some rounding, the application before you is for the 16 meters. The effect would be to rezone the lands from the residential waterfront RW-6C to the residential waterfront RW-6C with a site-specific exception. The site-specific zone will amend Section 14.2 to permit a maximum height of a principal dwelling to 16 meters. Integricon Property Restoration retained DeConing Group to provide a structural engineering opinion based on an inspection to determine the cause of the height increase. Integricon also retained Max Surveying to calculate the as-built height. Both of these reports were provided to the town with the zoning application. The reporting on height from Max Surveying and the opinion from DeConing Group provided the basis of the application request and included an opinion on the cause of the height increase. We have submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application request to permit an increase in height from a maximum permitted height of 7.5, noting that the original dwelling was at a height of 9.4 meters, which was based on a previous minor variance application approval. The land was purchased by Mr. Heeman and Ms. Nixon on September 15th, 2008. The site at the time included a single detached dwelling and an accessory structure. The original residence was constructed according to a minor variance, A3691, which was approved by the Committee of Adjustment in 1991, which did permit the height of the initial dwelling. On February 26, 2023, a catastrophic fire event demolished the entirety of the residence. The insurance process and the building approval process ensued, and on October 4th, 2024, the building permit was issued for the replacement of the dwelling on the same footprint as the previous dwelling to match the pre-loss footprint and building height. There were 3 town inspections completed, all in 2025, in January, February, March, and in June 2025, there was an issue identified with the height of the now constructed dwelling. Following the height issue being identified, Integricon retained Rudy Mack Surveying to review the as-built height, and Mack Surveying has confirmed the current height of the structure at 14.55 or the requested 16 meters, based on the definition of height within the current zoning bylaw. This is a photo of the original pardon me, I skipped one. I can go back. This is a photo of the original dwelling that was lost to fire. I would note the height of the original dwelling on the shoreline, the stair structure, which we will speak to further, and I would also note that there are no changes proposed to the shoreline, and the dock structures were not affected by the fire. And these are photos that you've just seen through the staff presentation, but this is the new dwelling that is currently under construction. Photo on the left is taken from the water. Top level is access from the laneway and provides living space. Second floor is bedrooms, and a lower level is basement and is structural to the dwelling. The middle photo is taken from the laneway off of Deepwater Drive and is the upper floor of the home and provides livable space. This is the site plan that was the basis of the approved building permit issued for construction, and the proposed home is located on the same footprint as the previous home lost to fire. And this site plan was used for the building permit and is still valid today. As noted previously, IntegraCon retained Rudy Mack Surveying to confirm the height, and they retained DeConing Group to inspect the structure and review the as-built conditions of the new dwelling. The review consisted of general review of the site works and construction to date, as well as verification of the floor-to-top of wall plate elevation measurements to confirm conformance. The DeConing Group report provided a number of opinions that did come forward and were the basis of the zoning submission. Overall, the vertical elevations between floor levels appear to be constructed in conformance with the permit drawings. The increase in overall building height is a result of the rise of the new foundation, and significant variations in the topography and bedrock elevations are apparent throughout the site. DeConing notes that it is their understanding that the foundation contractor realized during construction that there would be interference between the proposed wood framing and the bedrock, particularly along the rear wall and the rear deck framing. The governing existing bedrock elevation at the northeast corner of the building dictated the increase in the elevation of the foundation. And the foundation contractor raised the top of the foundation elevations such that the wood framing would clear the elevation of the bedrock. The increase in elevation permitted the wood structure to be constructed as proposed. It also facilitates the installation of adequate drainage and airflow under the floor framing. We have provided a planning justification report which provides a full policy analysis. And with me today, Bobby Leppington of Design by Bobby has been retained to complete final site designs, including the stair structure and future landscaping, and has been involved in our discussions throughout this process. Following my presentation today, Ms. Leppington also would like to speak and provide a brief presentation really speaking to some of the key summary comments from the district plan and her work now moving forward on landscaping and the stair structure. So on behalf of IntegraCon, Mr. Heeman and Ms. Nixon, we would like to thank you for your time. I'd like to thank staff for their time in discussions with me. And while we have reviewed the staff report, we are of the opinion that the zoning request is supportable, that mitigation measures can ensure that key policies are met, and that that they can be implemented through a site plan agreement, which staff has noted in their staff report. We would ask that council support the bylaw and allow IntegraCon to finish construction of the dwelling and allow Mr. Heeman and Ms. Nixon to move into their new home. And I'd now like to turn it over to Ms. Leppington through the chair.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up, Ms. Leppington.
Just click it.
Good afternoon, through the chair. My name is Bobby Leppington, 190 Taylor Road, Bracebridge, Ontario, P1L 1J9. I want to thank council and staff today for being here to listen to our presentation. I was retained by the contractor to provide input today and to complete the stair plans and the vegetation plans. I wanted to show you an overview of the topographic survey because it really indicates the steep, difficult topography that we're dealing with that is largely bedrock. The existing cottage, and I'm just going to ask Adam, how do I zero in on something? Top one? Perfect. There it is. All right. The existing cottage, I just want to point out this lower deck level here, and then that lower deck level is here. So just showing that the increase is as a result of the foundation increase. The new cottage rebuilt, there was a change to the roof plan from an approximate 312 pitch roof to a 612. And this was done to allow for proper ventilation and insulation, assuming that it would have met the height bylaw as passed by the building permit when it was approved. The resulted roof change results in a height change of 0.5 of a meter or 0.25 of a meter to the mid-height, 10 inches. So it's largely the foundation that's resulting in our change of height today. I want to provide an overview of what we're accomplishing should we be successful in gaining your support today. We have on the same footprint construction, and we plan to replace the existing deck and stairs for access to the waterfront. We plan to replace the existing wooden walkway to the garage that's not shown and reestablish the vegetation. This is a concept render giving you a general intent of what the cottage will look like finished. I do want to point out that wrong button. I apologize. I just want to point out here that there is a window here, and there is a garden on the east side in our topographic renders that didn't show really well, but there is a beautiful garden with an apple tree on the east side. So what our intention is to bring the project together and finish it with dark siding, stain out the wooden decks in that dark and have them blend back into the topography. Our intention is to let the east garden reestablish. That's this garden here where the fire pit is. Let the east side reestablish through nature. And as you can see, the site is largely bedrock. But it's the west side impact that we want to reduce. And what we want to do beyond the stairs and the decking across the front is provide 3 retaining walls with 3 trees in soils that are native in species, shallow in nature, shallow rooting, and will allow us to grow 12 to 16 feet high to reduce the impact of the west side. I want to talk briefly about the enhanced policies. A site plan agreement will bring in the requirement for a water quality impact assessment study. One of the things that we will look at is revegetation on the bedrock, revegetation in natural pockets of soils, and letting the vegetation reestablish and get those pockets of soils back. What the water quality impact assessment will have to prove is net benefit to water quality, and we can look at the septic system for this. We can look at the septic system to be replaced. The current septic is as existing, and we can look at replacing with a new system to today's codes, improving drainage on the roof, the downspouts, directing them away from the lake, and reestablish the vegetation where possible. Protection of the visual aesthetic. The cottage sits on the same footprint, and the stairs are going to be constructed as per the original plan, with the exception of the side for the increase in height, bringing those stairs down the side, keeping them off the front face. Character. Character of the new development is reflective of the existing cottage. The new dwelling, while having a greater height, will continue to be on the same footprint, be of 2 stories of habitable space, and include significant stairs to break up that large front face. The dwelling is in character and reflective with the existing waterfront. We are here looking for the support of council to move forward with that site plan agreement and that water quality impact study. Because what I wanted to touch on was the realities of reconstruction or demolition should we not be successful in gaining your support today. Should we be able to get a crane large enough up deep water to lift off the house and demolish the foundations, That will have to be done very carefully, 5 meters from the water, and cannot be done with an excavator due to the topography. If we are successful in gaining your support today, we are looking forward to finishing the decks. We're looking forward to finishing the stairs and the dwelling out. We're looking forward to minimize the disturbance that's already been taken on the site or already occurred on the site, and looking to gain your support today for approval. And I'm also here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, great. So there may be some, so we'll hear from the public, and then we might have some questions for you, so thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak to this application here today? Come on up. We just need your name and your mailing address, please.
I'm Robert Heeman. This is my wife, Tanny Nixon. Our mailing address is 16 Vine Crescent in Barrie, Ontario, L4N2B3. And we're the owners of 666 Deepwater Drive. We're terribly sorry that this has happened in the first place, and apologize to the council for taking up your precious time. Our history on Muldrew Lake is extensive. My family built our first cottage on Muldrew Lake in 1960, and basically I grew up there. My wife's family bought the property, 666 Deepwater, in 1983, and in 1988 they became full-time residents of Gravenhurst and lived in Gravenhurst until my mother-in-law moved to a retirement home. When the cottage burned to the ground in February 2023, we lost much more than the building. We have had no family cottage for 3 summers. We lost visiting time with our children and grandchildren, and time with our neighbors and great friends. All of the old family treasures are gone. They were all burnt up. We've missed out on Christmas and birthdays at our cottage, and our connection to Gravenhurst in general. It was never our intention that the restored building would be higher than the original, but as you can see, and from the presentations, the justification report, the characteristics of the property made this unavoidable. We assumed that the permitted drawings would guide everything appropriately to the appropriate standards. We will work with the town to do landscaping to mitigate the look of the restored building. It's been almost to 3 years without our planned retirement home, and it's been very tragic and very stressful for us. So we ask the council for your support of this zoning amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak to this application? If so, come on up. Are there, okay, none electronically? Okay. So, council, so are there any questions for our manager of planning, the applicant's agents, or the applicants? No questions? Okay. Councillor Morphy.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I really wanted, I mean, we've all had the background of this story and what happened and the fire, and we're all very empathetic, but the permit was for 9.4 meters. How did it go up another 15, 20 feet without anybody stopping it and saying, we got an issue with the foundation, maybe we better build a 1-story? Like, where did it jump up to 16 meters? It's almost 20 feet higher than was permitted. I want to understand where the mistake was made. I know you're trying to fix what's gone by, but I really want to understand how it happened. And was it the construction company? Was it the planner? How did it get so large so fast?
Who's going to take that? Okay, great. Come on up.
Through you, Chair, thank you. It was the foundation subcontractor that took it upon themselves to raise and increase the height unknown to Integricon until such time as the framing started when it was noticed.
Subsequent?
Thanks, Bobby. That's where you're losing me. When framing started and it was noticed, why didn't somebody put the big boy pants on and say, you know, we got to go back to the drawing board, we got to go back to the town, we've got to talk because this building is going to be 20 feet too high.
Through you, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you. To date, there's been no stop work order issued, orders to comply perhaps, but no stop work order. So the contractor and the subcontractors, having a foundation contractor and then a separate framing contractor, and it wasn't noticed until the June inspection by town staff.
Okay. I'm going to go over to Counselor Jorgensen. Is there a question? Okay. Just so the public is aware, our time to debate the subject comes at the end of all the hearings. So this is just time for questions and answers. So Counselor Jorgensen.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I just want to get clarification on how much taller it is than the original building, because I think Councillor Morphy said, you know, about 20 feet, but I'm not sure it's that much difference, is it? Or could we clarify what the difference in height actually is between the current building and what was on site previously?
Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Jorgensen. So originally it was 9.4 meters from average grade. The new building is 14.6 meters based on the surveyor certificate. Sorry, that's 14.55 meters, rounded up to 14.6 meters in height. But the difference between the two existing heights, that's not a number that was provided to staff. The best illustration we have to show you was those two photos side by side, unless the applicant's agent is able to confirm what those actual numbers are.
Ms. Leppington?
Thank you, through you, Chair. If you have the existing photo and bring it up, what I can offer is this. I've been in construction for over 20 years, and the average height of that dwelling is approximately 36 feet to the mid-height, based on my experience and my calculations of roof lines and floor levels, if that helps provide a direction of how much further height is increased.
Subsequent?
We're comparing feet and meters, I guess, is a problem for most of us, I would suspect.
Through the chair, I apologize. Construction is all in Imperial, and the zoning bylaws in metric. Approximately 11 meters.
Okay. Counselor Varney, you have a question?
Thank you, through you. This is to Director Egger. I'm just wondering if you've ever had this problem before, and what does the town suggest? I mean, hopefully they're not asking for the people to tear the whole thing down. Can you take off the roof and change the height of the roof, or what? Have they been given any suggestions at all as to how they can work with this without tearing the whole thing down or lifting it up to reduce the base of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Varney. I'll answer to the best of my abilities, understanding that I'm not the chief building official or a builder or designer. So staff's recommendation that the application not be approved, so they'd be permitted to have what their previous variance granted them in 1991, which was the 9.4 meters or 9.4 meters of height from the average grade. So they would determine that, we'd figure out where that was, and that's what they would be able to build to. And that's not saying the whole building needs to come to the ground, but I'm not sure what would be involved if it's changing the roof line, if it's removing a story, and how far the construction's gone on. It would be premature, or I'm unable to comment on that. Perhaps the designer or builder could explain to council what would entail to be doing that, but that would in essence be what would be required. They're permitted to go to 9.4 meters from average grade. We could determine what that height is, and they were able to build to that, understanding that's still significantly higher than what the current standard today is, and that this is 5 meters from the lake.
Councillor Hunter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, in the report, it says there was 5 letters of support. So I'm assuming that means that there were no letters of objection, and clearly no members from the public here that were wanting to object. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Councillor Strength?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Ager. Do you by chance have any information on the property that's across the waterway that you showed us with the what not to do rock? Do you have any height by chance on that? Okay, it just occurred to me now. If you don't, I understand.
Okay, so we'll ask one of the agents the question. You might have the answer.
Sorry, I just wanted to, through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify. When I said the existing height was approximately 11, our height increase is approximately 3 meters or less from what was existing on site that was destroyed by fire to what was built today, just to clarify that based on my professional opinion of the existing construction height. And if you could repeat your question, I'd be happy to answer it.
Thank you. It was, through you, Madam Mayor, it was. Sorry. The property that's across the waterway with the dark blue that's on the yes, with the rock face. I was just wondering if we had any information on the height of that dwelling. I'm sure, I just thought about it now, I'm sure, that one, I'm sure you don't. It's a neighboring property, so.
Through,
Okay,
through your
yep, go
worship.
ahead. Yep.
I guess I'm just hearing some chatter in the back of, and so I guess I would ask if staff could just describe the difference in the calculation of height between, because that's really critical. When we're talking about the difference, we also have a definition, a difference in the definitions from, you know, what we're looking at, the 9.4 height that was approved by the minor variance to now. And so that's also accounting for that difference in height that, you know, we have before you to make a decision on. So I guess through the chair, I would just ask if staff could just give an outline of the differences in those two definitions, because I think it's critical to your decision. Thank you.
Mr. Egger, can you explain the differences as how we used to measure height and how we measure height now, please?
Certainly, Your Worship, and I'll just ask Madam Clerk if you wouldn't mind just putting the presentation back up. I'll just use the practical example on screen. Sorry, yeah, this is great. Or let's go. Sorry, I'll use the one side by side. There we go. Okay, so in 1991, the zoning bylaw measured height by average grade. So average grade would be taken from the lowest point, so not that like the center of my circle where my cursor is, you'd find lowest finished grade and highest finished grade, and you'd find the average in between the two. So for ease sake, again, I'm not a surveyor and I'm just doing this quickly on the fly for general purposes. Average point could be considered somewhere around here, and then you take the height measurement from where my arrow is to the midpoint of the roof. Now we use lowest finished grade, not average finished grade. So now the height measurement is taken from the low corner on the left-hand side. So for council's information though, because of the 1991 variance that approved a 9.4 meter height from average grade, they have the benefit of building a building 9.4 meters from where average grade is. It would have to be determined by a surveyor and build 9.4 meters up, but this structure still exceeds that.
Okay. Counselor, are there any other questions? Oh, Counselor Morphy? Keep a question? Yeah.
Sorry, Your Worship, yes, through you. I did have a question. I was doing the calculations based on the request for 16 meters. Why are you asking for even more than what the existing build is? Because I was doing the math, 16 meters minus 9.4 meters is a difference of 6.6 times 3.6 feet, gets you over about 20 feet. But why are you asking for even more than it exists?
Mr. Egger?
Through your worship, perhaps the applicant's planner can clarify that. The staff report, clearly talked about 14.6 meters throughout the entirety of the report. The surveyor certificate that I have here in front of me indicates the existing building's 14.55 meters. The zoning bylaw only uses one decimal place, so that's rounded up to 14.6 meters. Hearing the number 16 meters repeatedly tonight is the first time staff's hearing that number.
Thank you, through the chair. We are asking for 14.55. It was my understanding that staff wanted to give some leeway, and I believe that the notice indicated 16 meters. So we are asking for 14.55, which would match the Rudy Mack surveying opinion.
Okay. Great. We're all on the same page, 14.55? 14.6, okay, great. Okay, I'm going to go back to Councillor Jorgensen. Question?
Just quickly, just to clarify again, because I think it's the crux of the matter here, that what is being requested, the 14.6 meters, is using the current measurement technique. And so we really can't compare it to the previous 9.4 unless we knew what that average elevation was. And just want to confirm that. So we're kind of still comparing apples and oranges because we don't have what the average height to compare.
Okay, great. For those watching at home and listening at home, we got a nod, so it's hard to compare the two. All right, are there any other questions? Because I don't like to bring staff into debate. Okay. So with that, Mr. Egger, are there any recommendations or comments to bring to the attention of council as a result of these proceedings?
Your worship, as detailed in the staff report, staff are recommending the application be denied.
The bylaw will be considered by council later this afternoon. If there are no further questions, then I declare this public meeting to be concluded. I now declare this portion of the meeting to be a public meeting to deal with application numbers OPA 02 2024 and ZA 28 2024 from Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association. I will now ask the manager of planning services to please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application. Mr. Egger?
Thank you, Your Worship, and bear with me, everyone. This is only a one-slide presentation, given the nature of the application, as you can appreciate. The applications before you affect all lands fronting on and in the vicinity of the Muldrew Lake, as shown on screen. You heard staff speak earlier about who was included in the notice and received a letter in the mail. If your property is lit up on screen right now, that's where a letter was mailed to. And not only was a letter mailed to you, but then there was also more information available on our website for you to then read the report prepared by the Lake Association's agents. So the proposed is for an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications that were submitted by EcoView Consulting on behalf of the Mulder Lake Cottagers Association to amend both the official plan and zoning bylaw for all properties within the town of Gravenhurst that have frontage on Mulder Lake. The current lake-specific policies for Mulder Lake were implemented following a community lake planning process initiated by the Lake Association that occurred in the early 2000s. The policies were most recently updated in 2009 through an applicant-driven process similar to this one. The proposed amendments would implement a number of changes to properties fronting on Mulder Lake, which generally can be characterized as establishing maximum building size, establishing limits for rebuilding and enlarging existing dwellings, updating provisions related to boathouses and boat ports, updating lot creation policies, clarifying policies related to commercial uses on the lake, and providing direction for additional studies that may be required to support future Planning Act applications made on Mulder Lake. The lands can generally be characterized as the waterfront area, as they're all within 150 meters of the lake. And the lake-specific policies can be found in section D 17.3 of the official plan, which are specific policies to Mulder Lake. So, as detailed in the staff report, the purpose of today's meeting and this report is for information purposes only. Staff haven't prepared a recommendation, and really this is to initiate the public consultation process and have an open opportunity for members of the public to voice their concerns or be in favor of the proposal. As you're all aware, we've received a large number of comments in support and in opposition of the proposal. So I'll just briefly talk to highlights of the official plan amendment that's before you, and then also the zoning bylaw. So it updates the lake vision and character, which defines a clear vision for environmental protection, maintaining lake character, and managing growth that they say is consistent with community feedback. They also establish a maximum building size in the official plan, which introduces a limit on gross floor area based on distances from the lake, so smaller maximums for dwellings closer to the water in an attempt to reduce visual and ecological impacts. They also establish new requirements in the official plan for rebuilding or enlarging existing cottages, which establishes limits for legal non-complying dwellings within 30 meters of the shoreline. It also encourages an environmental net gain and says that rebuilds or expansions cannot worsen compliance or harm the environment. So any sort of expansion that worsens the situation in theory would require an official plan amendment. So if it's, for example, the standard provisions are 30 meters from the lake, if there's a cottage at 20 meters from the lake and they want to put an addition on that gets to 19 meters of the lake, in theory right now you'd need an official plan amendment if this proposed policy was adopted. It also updates language around boathouses and boat ports and removes the definition of shoreline storage buildings. It also then clarifies one property with 90 meters of frontage or more may have one, and then it also provides maximum width, 15% of the frontage, or 10 meters, whichever is the lesser. Also has a maximum projection and a one-story height, 3.9 meters, no human habitation. That means no sleeping cabin can be in a boathouse, no rooftop decks or plumbing. It also then clarifies the lot creation policies, but does have a caveat for conservation lots that may have smaller frontage as normally required, but there is still a requirement for a zoning bylaw amendment. That's new. Also, it talks about commercial uses, clarifies that currently there's only one existing commercial property on the lake, being 1323 North Mulder Lake Road, and it then outlines submission requirements if should any changes happen on that property, which include zoning bylaw amendment, site evaluation report, and a boating impact study to mitigate erosion and crowding. And then it speaks to boating and lake capacity, and then shoreline protection environmental policies. Further to that, then the zoning bylaw amendment provisions can generally be characterized as implementing a few of the policy changes that are happening in the official plan. So it then clarifies language for boathouses and boat ports. Currently, right now, Mulder Lake zoning bylaw doesn't contemplate boat ports. It just talks about boathouses, so it updates that. So boat ports would be permitted. And then also it introduces this new sliding scale for development within proximity to the lake. So there's the report talks about it, but if you're within 5 meters of the lake, you're only allowed a gross floor area of 93 square meters, whereas if you're 10 meters to 14.9 meters, it slides up to 186 square meters. 25 to 29.9 meters is 325 square meters, and then ultimately, there's provisions that allow for a maximum of 372 square meters if you're 30 meters back from the lake. So that's new and different. And we already kind of have a sliding scale policy as it relates to width, but this would be the first of its kind as it relates to gross floor area. It also then speaks to sleeping cabins and having a maximum of 2 permitted anywhere. As detailed in the staff report, a detailed list of all those proposed amendments can be found within attachment A of this report, which was appended to the agenda, and as noted earlier, it was available online for the public's viewing since the notice was published. With respect to comments, the Deputy Treasurer, Fire and Emergency Services both commented no objection. The District of Muskoka did provide comment saying district staff are of the opinion these applications are premature at this time, given the ongoing Muskoka official plan review process, which includes a comprehensive update to the lake system health policies, and then they requested a notice of council's decision. And currently, 92 separate letters have been received from members of the public on the application. Most of the letters are property owners on Muldrew Lake or within the vicinity of Muldrew Lake. Within the 92 letters, that's 52 letters of support, 38 letters of opposition, and 2 letters, for those of you who are following along with the math, are just requesting a notice of decision. The letters of support can generally be characterized as being satisfied with the direction of the policies and provisions being brought forward by the Lake Association in an effort to ensure the lake continues to develop in an environmentally sensitive way, whereas the letters of opposition can generally be characterized as concerned that the proposed applications were not brought forward in good faith and through the process that the owners viewed as transparent. In addition, there were concerns that the controls are too onerous on property owners looking to develop in the future. So as I previously stated, staff are recommending that this report be received for information and would note that a future report with a recommendation will be brought forward once all the comments are reviewed, analyzed, and summarized for council's consideration at a later date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Egger. I will now ask for comments by the agent if they are attending in person. Please approach the podium, give your name and full mailing address.
Thank you, Ontario. Oh, no, it's okay. I don't have a visual presentation prepared. That's Sarah's. So Sarah will be coming up after me. She's representing the MLCA, and there's of course others in the gallery that are registered or online as well that will be delegates. So thank you and good afternoon. As I said, Kent Randall, I'm the principal planner at EcoView Consulting Services. So we were retained by the Muldrew Lakes Cottagers Association in about 2019 to assist with the OPA and ZBA applications. So when we took this on, there was certainly a wealth of information, and Mr. Egger has gone over sort of the background as to how we've gotten here, and some of the speakers will be touching upon that. And the idea obviously is to provide some updated policies and provisions from what's existing for the Muldrew Lakes that would manage the shoreline development and redevelopment in a meaningful way. And then the way that we approach this as planners is that we're looking at this kind of like a secondary plan that you would find underneath an official plan. It just provides more specific policies that apply to an area within a section of the municipality, in this case, the Muldrew Lakes. And like any secondary plan or official plan update, it's very important to canvass the public. And you'll hear a lot about that, the efforts that were made to reach as many people as possible. And that includes members of the MLCA and as well as non-members, because of course there are people on the lake that don't belong to the association. And as you'll see through the presentations that will be made, the MLCA certainly did their part from a consultation standpoint. Even prior to retaining us, they had already started extensive outreach with the landowners on the lake. Aside from the discussions at their annual general meeting, The MLCA has a well-documented and well-advertised process that included physical notices delivered to every cottage on the lake, including dock drop-offs. And this reached members and non-members alike, and it resulted in some of the surveys of up to 50% responses, which is incredible. That's incredible for as someone who does this public process for a living in a lot of different municipalities. A 50% response rate in a survey is something to be proud of. So coming up with those policies and provisions that we came around to and that we're providing for in the OPA and ZBA, it wasn't easy. There was significant back and forth with the Cottage Association membership and leadership. What you're seeing before you today is the fourth iteration of the OPA and ZBA that went through the ringer. And what we've settled on, in some people's eyes, may be too much. And others, it might be not enough. And that's typically what we would call the sweet spot. And it's certainly, I will say, a reflection of a majority of the respondents to the surveys and the feedback that we received from the surveys and from the public. And as I've noted, it was quite extensive. Unfortunately, the reality is that we're not going to have consensus, just as you wouldn't with a secondary plan or with an OPA update with the policies that you may put in. That's normal. That's how planning works. And we understand that people will still object to this, and we'll try our best to address any comments. And as Mr. Egger pointed out, you're being asked to defer this. We're happy to provide a response to comments, to questions that do come up. A lot of these comments that we've seen seem to be misunderstandings about what is actually being proposed, which we hope we can clear up today or in the near future. But there is going to come to a point where not everybody is going to be satisfied, and that's something that is going to happen. But again, this is not dissimilar to your OP update process or secondary plan process. And my goal as a planner is with this or with any planning application or decision is to reflect the public good and overall good planning. And it is my opinion that these amendments do just that. If anything, they certainly reflect one of the more comprehensive and thorough public consultation processes that I've ever been a part of. And for that, the MLCA and the town of Gravenhurst should be proud. So again, we're here to take questions. We're here to answer them if we can. And I'm happy to take questions. But if we save that for later, I'll right now turn it over to Ms. Bell. Thank you.
Okay, you have a presentation to make? I just need my notes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us here. My name is Sarah Bale, and I have been involved in the development of the lake plan over the last 8 years. I've been involved in various capacities, but primarily as a volunteer on the Lake Planning Committee, but I am also an ecologist and a land use planner by profession. So I'm going to try to be pretty brief with my comments about the plan, but I thought it was important to explain the origins of this project. So around 2015, 2016, I was the volunteer lake steward for the Lake Association, and we started to notice a lot of controversy within the public with every single planning application that was proposed on the lake. It seemed that the lake community was very frustrated. Obviously not everyone, but there was a good amount of people who were very frustrated with the development that was occurring on the lake, and in particular, the redevelopment of existing dwellings on the lake. The original idea for this project was that perhaps we could come together as a community and develop a vision for the lake in the form of a community lake plan, which would effectively be a secondary plan within the Town of Gravenhurst official plan. This seemed like the perfect means to already an existing set of Muldra-specific policies and provisions in the planning documents. As I looked into this more, I found out that they had been in place since 2009 and had been put together by a group of volunteers on the lake with the assistance of French planning services. These policies were intended to be updated every 5 to 10 years, similar to the rest of the official plan. The other thing I noticed was that the town official plan had a policy encouraging lake communities to prepare lake plans and strategies to articulate lake-specific principles and goals. So before I provide a bit of a summary of our process, I wanted to highlight why the Muldrew Lakes represent a unique land use planning context. So originally, the Muldrew Lakes were actually called Leg Lake due to their long and narrow nature. And so their long and narrow nature means that there is a large amount of shoreline compared to the amount of lake surface area in comparison to some of the larger, more average sized and shaped lakes in Muskoka. So this means that there's a large amount of shoreline that can be developed, a lot of lots that can be created along the shoreline with very little water to mitigate the impacts of this development. So the net impact of all of this shoreline development is potentially going to be much greater when there is so little water to act as a buffer in between, versus a larger lake where the impacts to people and the environment are going to be considerably less. This is a very different planning context than the larger lakes in Muskoka. We did an analysis to see how many lots could still be created on the Muldrew Lakes, and there are very few. So what this means is that the majority of development over the next 20 years is going to be redevelopment of existing lots. And so with the current density and opportunities to redevelop legal non-complying structures, which for the most part are very close to the water, like we saw in the last application, they're usually within, so this, you'll see, I'll provide a closer up visual of this map where you can actually see the building envelopes, but the majority of these older cottages on these very, very narrow and dense lots are within 20 meters of the water. So if you can imagine that many of these older, smaller cottages are redeveloped into much larger structures over the next 20 years, and they're all very close to the water, that doesn't leave a lot of natural shoreline remaining to mitigate the impacts of this development. So a natural shoreline helps to maintain the resilience of the lake ecosystem and protect water quality. The protection and function of the natural shoreline is particularly important on a lake such as Muldrew, with a lot of steep and exposed bedrock and shallow soils. This is a planning scenario where it's very important to look at the specific land use context and the potential cumulative impacts of shoreline development. We cannot simply rely on mitigating the impacts on a site-by-site basis, especially after we've had more than one confirmed blue-green algae bloom. So here is a closer up map of a section of the lake where the lots are very narrow. The frontages are often between 30 and 40 meters. The channel of water is also very narrow, about 100 meters wide. And the majority of these cottages are older and small and located within the first 20 meters from the shoreline, as I previously said. So again, imagining where all these little development envelopes that you can see close to the water are redeveloped into structures that are maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times larger than what is existing, there's not much natural shoreline remaining. So this is, again, I just wanted to stress why it's so important to approach this planning exercise with these specific characteristics of the lake in mind. So in terms of our process, in 2017, the members of the Lake Association decided to proceed with an update of the existing 2009 policies and provisions in the current official plan and zoning bylaw. In 2020, EcoView Consulting Services was retained to assist with the process. The process began with a community-wide survey, followed by a town hall to discuss the results of the survey and receive additional feedback. EcoView prepared a feasibility study, which provided an initial set of policy recommendations based on extensive background research and the community consultation conducted to date at that time. In 2021, members decided to proceed with drafting an initial policy set to update the lake-specific section of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Other people who are going to speak today will go into much more detail about our engagement and consultation. This is just supposed to be a high-level overview. And then between 2021 and 2024, there were 4 iterations of policy development and consultation. So after each draft of policy was created, we hosted a town hall to explain the changes that had been made in relation to the feedback we had received and answer any questions. And the 4th draft is represented by the current applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. So without going into great detail, during the process of consultation and policy development, which spanned the last 8 years, the primary concerns we heard from the community were regarding cottage lot development and specifically the setback, scale, and massing of dwellings, in addition to concerns about water quality and maintaining and enhancing the natural beauty and character of the natural shoreline. We also heard a lot about recreational boating traffic and impacts including shoreline erosion and property damage due to the narrowness of the water body. So after working through 4 iterations of policy development, we have a final draft plan which aims to ensure that the values and vision of the approximately 180 people who consistently participated in this process are represented. We also work to ensure that the existing policies and provisions are clear through several proposed housekeeping amendments, and finally, to ensure that the proposed policy conforms to the existing in effect municipal policy and is consistent with the in effect provincial policy. So at the end of the day, what does our final draft lake plan include? The applications propose policies which address the following: lake character and vision. So in the current lake-specific section of the official plan, there is a policy which aims to limit development on the lake to what is reasonable and modest, quote unquote. This is a difficult policy to implement. The final draft of our proposal aims to clarify what this means to the community through measurable and implementable policies and provisions in the zoning bylaw. So speaking directly to shoreline development, the applications propose a maximum gross floor area for new development and redevelopment based on setback from the shoreline, with a proposed maximum of 4,000 square feet, at least 30 meters from the shore. And these numbers came directly from our survey results. We didn't make them up. Site evaluation reports. So the applications propose a requirement for site evaluation reports for any development that is not considered minor. And the purpose of this is to help determine the most appropriate building envelope to mitigate environmental and visual impact to the lake. In terms of boathouses and boat ports, the changes are mainly to clarify the existing provisions and extend the existing provisions for boathouses to include boat ports. In terms of sleeping cabins, right now there's 1 sleeping cabin permitted per lot of 500 square feet in size. We're proposing the same or 2 smaller, each half. So 2 smaller cabins that equate to the same cumulative footprint, or 1, and the purpose of this is based on the survey feedback and also just in keeping with the historical built character of the lake. In terms of the commercial property, we're proposing to require a boating impact study for the redevelopment of this property, just to mitigate the impacts of potentially adding a lot of boats to the lake if something like a hotel or a resort were to go in. And the applications encourage conservation by, so this is the only change to lot creation. I just wanted to clarify that. There are no additional proposed changes to lot creation other than that we are proposing that you can apply to sever a lot which is smaller than the existing minimum lot size if you are going to donate that lot to conservation, to a land conservancy or other similar means so that it is protected in perpetuity. And finally, there's several housekeeping amendments just to improve clarity and implementation for the town. And that is all I have to say. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. The clerk cut me off. Unusual, so this is unusual for us. So we have a number of remote members of the public participating. They come first as per procedural bylaw. So bear with us. We will be going through them first, and then we will be going to the people in the gallery, okay? So with that, I will now ask for comments from Jessica Roher, who has pre-registered. Jessica, please ensure your camera and microphone are turned on. Press the speak icon and follow with your comments. Oh, I actually will add before Jessica gets started that, again, we do have 9 participants. We have people in the gallery here who I'm sure are here to speak as well. But if we can be concise and succinct, we have received, like our manager said, 90 letters So we have heard loud and clear some of the concerns on both sides of the issue. So if we can try and be succinct, and that way we won't be here until midnight tonight. So with that, Jessica? Jessica, we can't hear you. No. Sorry. No, we still can't hear you, I'm afraid. Okay, so we'll go to the next person, and then we can circle back.
Sorry,
Oh, there you go. There you got it.
I think I sorted it out. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
great. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to be really, really brief. I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jessica. I am a cottager on Muldrew Lake. I've been there for my entire life. My family is fourth generation on the lake, and I joined actually the Lake Plan Committee after I had my daughter because we were seeing a ton of development on the lake that, as Sarah mentioned, a lot of people had concerns about. And we were also concerned about the water quality and the environmental impact of not implementing some limits on the development of cottages. I am a lawyer, but I also have a background as a community organizer. I spent 3 years working for United Way member agency, doing outreach on civic engagement projects in Scarborough, outside of Toronto, or in Toronto. And I brought that to the table in my work with the Lake Plan Committee. So we had Sarah's skills and her experience doing community outreach, and then also my experience, and then you'll probably hear from a few other people who were on that Lake Plan. But the point I want to make very briefly is that, and you will hear this again, we conducted very extensive outreach in order to make sure that the Lake Plan really did integrate the voices of various individuals throughout the lake. And we did this by reaching out to people in person, virtually through town halls. We did it through notices dropped off at every single dock. We did this through mail. We did it online. We reached out to people in every way we could. And I think it shows in our numbers. And the one thing I want to specifically mention is the issue around cottage sizes. Before this, we were seeing cottage applications for cottages of 6,000 to 9,000 square feet, which is very, very large. It is not characteristic with the lake. It is not, in my view, reasonable or modest. And in fact, that is something that the majority of the lake does agree with. And everybody on the lake was given an opportunity to communicate what they thought the maximum square footage should be. One of the reasons why this lake plan process took so long is because of the amount of engagement that we did. Not only did we survey the community once to determine what they wanted the size to be, we actually conducted a second survey to confirm, because of people saying that they did not want the size to be 4,000 square feet, that the majority of people who responded to the survey, which was 188 in the first one and 176 in the second one, did want a limit of 4,000 square feet or less. In fact, a lot of people wanted less. And so, as Kent mentioned, there has been a ton of outreach on this. We have worked for years to develop a plan that is representative and reflective of the interests of the cottagers on the lake. And we did everything we could to consider and respond to concerns of cottagers. So I'll just leave it there. I'm sure you will hear more about that, but I did want to add my voice to say that this is the result of extensive outreach and extensive work on behalf of many individuals who dedicated a lot of time to try their hardest to ensure that this does reflect the interests of the lake. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will now ask for comments from Peter Link, who has pre-registered. Oh, Peter Link has left. So, oh, Peter Link may be here. So I will now ask for comments by Josh Goshlick, who has pre-registered to join us today. Josh, John. Oh, okay, Josh, one letter. Change consonant. Great, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, deputy mayors, councilors, staff, and all guests. My name is John Goshalack, and we are located at 196 Haloway B Drive, Island 6MM in Gravenhurst, Ontario. And I wanted to speak to you, and I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I have a few slides to speak to you about. It's going to pull up. Here we go. I'm hoping you can see this now.
Yeah,
Is this on screen?
Yes, we can. We can. Yep.
Okay, great. As I said, my name is John Goshalack. I've been a cottager since 1961 when I was born, but we purchased our first Muldrew Lake cottage in 2010. And as I said, we're on Island 6MM in Middle Muldrew. And coincident to this whole process, I was the vice president and Lake Plan Committee chair from 21 to 23, president between 23 and 25, and now I'm acting as the past president of the Lake Association. I want to talk to you specifically about two aspects of the process that we went through and comments that have been made and suggested over the whole period of time, but again, reiterated in the documentation presented to everybody. And so there are two key points I want to talk about. One is about the voting process, and the second is something called change.org. So first thing I want to talk about is the voting process. As has been indicated, there were many times that we wanted to make sure that we were listening to the requests that were being made. And this all started at the AGM in 2022, when during a Lake Plan presentation, it was deemed that we needed to have a membership vote before we send this to the town. So the board of the Muldrew Lake Cottage Association undertook to hold that vote once the plan would be completed. So when we got to that point, we'd say, here's what we want to submit, but let's have a vote. The resulting Lake Plan document, which over the next few months, almost a year, ended up calling for a series of votes. We were going to have a vote on every single individual element. And that was the way we presented it to the membership at that time, saying, look, it's probably going to break down to be 6 or 9 individual votes. And we need to figure out how do we manage proxy voting, because that would become complicated. Somebody can give you a proxy, there's an amendment to that particular item, and then now we have to go back to the proxy voting and try to process that. So in early August of 2023, we were saying we're going to try to hold a meeting. We were trying to determine if we could do it outside and figure out electronic ways to allow proxy communication, and struggled with that. And ultimately, we had to seek advice from a constitutional expert who at that particular point reviewed our documentation, our bylaws, our constitution, and determined that the proxies were not in the correct constitutional form. So there was no realistic way to hold a membership vote as planned while still allowing proxies to be viable, which is a requirement of our previous constitution. So any proposed amendments would have been difficult to accommodate using the required proxy and meeting format. So about 2 weeks later, or so we had to basically scramble in and say, look, at our annual general meeting, we can't do the voting, but there was this surge and people brought a motion forward, and this is it documented in our minutes of that AGM. Motion was made by one individual and seconded that the board take no action with respect to this whole process until it has been approved by the members at a special general meeting called for that purpose and held during the summer months, at which meeting everybody can view the voting members. They wanted to make sure everybody get a chance to vote in person. What's really important to note here is that motion was defeated. So the motion did not carry on that day, and that is in our minutes. And yet people still hang on to that information as if it's the fact that we denied the ability to vote. Very clearly laid out, we were not able to, and we explained it. And then the motion, there was a motion presented to try to make it voting mandatory, and we defeated that motion. So following that, we also heard that the voting, we should be asking everybody on the lake. And you're going to see that in some of the comments. So the comments that were coming in are saying, we didn't get a chance to vote. And we also, this isn't representative because we didn't ask everybody on the lake. But again, our Constitution would never allow that, as this was beyond our scope. At that point in late August, we said, we better get some legal advice on this. So we consulted with a lawyer, and on September the 15th, 2023, we obtained the following independent legal advice: that there is no requirement to seek member input. The lawyer basically said, in their view, the board is not required to obtain approval from the members or broader community before putting this lake plan to the town. And the reason being is the lake plan is listing and providing non-binding recommendations only. It's not like, even if we would have voted on something, it still goes to your council for the councilors to determine whether it's acceptable or not. We can voice our concerns and opinions and try to present our information, but it's really in your hands to hold that final deciding. So these are our non-binding recommendations. It's like and by the way, the part that I always like to remind people is you did vote. We asked you numerous times. You had an opportunity, and as said earlier by Jessica and others, 188 people responded in a survey with their voting intentions. They said, I like this, I don't like this, I want this, I don't want that. So they clearly already outlined their desires. And as we noted in our reports, 73.6% of the lake wanted to have those building restrictions, as mentioned by Mr. Ager earlier. So that's all part of that process. It's documented, and I needed to make sure that you as councilors understand that we did do all that we needed to do and got all the right advice along the way from the individuals and the experts. And it's all been documented and maintained in our records that we followed all those aspects. So with that in mind, the board went through the final process, got the plan in front, got it prepared, and the board then held a meeting on March 27th. And the board motion was moved and seconded that the lake plan and the survey results, the full report, be presented to the town, and that motion was carried. So we then brought that forward to the town in, I think it was finally in August of 2024. So those are my comments regarding the voting process, and I wanted really to make a point of letting you know that, as I said, these are, I wanted to set the record straight, as it were, that if somebody says, well, we didn't get a chance to vote, yes, you did. And you weren't following, you weren't at the AGM, or you weren't following the minutes, or you weren't following the whole process. You were given that opportunity. It was rejected. I should say we rejected the notion of voting. And this is where we followed all the rules and requirements. The second comment that came up along the way was that, and you'll see it in some of the communications, is regarding this posting that said that, we did a survey, somebody put it out there, and on change.org, and we got 154 signatures opposing this process. So again, to clarify what change.org is, it's a website which allows users to create and sign petitions in an attempt to advance various social causes and influence decision makers. It's a US-based for-profit company. and they claim 565 million users as of October. There were 154 signatures, but no clear indication of how many of those 154 signatures are actual Muldrew Lake property owners. So again, random people online saying, you're right, this shouldn't happen, whatever the case may be. And the last interesting indication is the original posting on that change.org motion or submission was that the petition, I should say, was made by one individual Muldrew Lake property owner, and there were 8 additional comments made by that same property owner. So there are 9 comments on that site, all of them made by the same individual. No other comments were registered on that. So I want to thank you again for giving me an opportunity to present and speak, and I'm available if you have any questions later on or separately by electronic means. Thank you again, Your Worship, and all councilors. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. I should have known that that was wrong because I know you, John. So
Yes,
my apologies
yes.
for not recognizing that there was a typo here. Thank you for your presentation. I will now ask for comments by Carl Schenkel, who has pre-registered to participate electronically. Carl, there you are.
Yes.
Great, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Carl Schenkel. I am an owner on Muldrew Lake and have been for 30 plus years. So I just wanted to speak briefly and express my opinion that I am opposed to this plan for the reasons that, you know, a number of the people that have spoken before me have indicated that we've gone out to the community, extensively out to the community, and I don't completely agree with that. What they have done is they've gone out to the Muldrew Cottagers Association community, which is you have to pay to belong to that organization, and to the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association's own admittance, it's less than 50% of the cottager population of Muldrew Lake. So when you hear these numbers of 70% or other numbers that folks have provided during this session, we need to keep in mind that they have only gone out to people that actually belong to the Cottagers Association, which is a paid requirement in order to belong to that. So John spoke of, you know, this change.org. I was one of the individuals that signed that petition. And I think, in my opinion, when you see something like that, when you are part of the Lake Committee, this, to me, raises a flag, and perhaps you should rethink on how you're doing this. The other comment that John made, which to me is disturbing, is that they were supposed to have the vote. I understand about the proxy and the technical aspect, but that doesn't alleviate having the vote across all of the owners on Muldrew Lake. And John's comments about seeking legal counsel and legal counsel indicating that this is not necessary and that the Muldrew Lakes Association just proceeded based on that advice from their legal counsel, in fact, has not brought the community together. It has separated the community. There is definitely, I understand that the town of Gravenhurst has received 90 plus letters. I wasn't even aware that we can send letters in And this is why I've come on this to voice my opinion. It's not a true representation of what they have provided. I am in favor of continuing with the bylaws that are currently in place in Gravenhurst. And someone spoke briefly about the District of Muskoka, how they are introducing their own investigations and recommendations, and that is the process that we should be setting forth, not individual lake by lake kind of plans. Finally, I just want to say, there was one lady that said, oh, the majority of the proposals that we're getting today are 6,000 to 9,000 square feet. That is not an accurate representation. If you look at the zoned map of Muldrew, and everybody had the opportunity to see, they're very small lots. You can't put, even with today's planning department, you cannot put a 6,000 to 9,000 square foot property on there. So I'm opposed to introducing this lake plan. I feel what is currently in place in the town of Gravenhurst is effective, and that I feel that the Cottages Association or the folks that are speaking here today are putting forward this representation, that we did extensive, surveying, and we did extensive this and extensive that. I am not in agreement with that. They kept it specifically to the folks that were part of the Muldrew Cottages Association, which is less than 50%. To Cottages Association's own admittance, they have less than 50% representation on the lake. You have to pay to do it, and that they have moved forward regardless of what folks have been trying to say, whether it's on change.org or coming to some meeting. They have seek this legal advice, and the legal advice says you don't need to do this, just go ahead and do it, which has actually divided the community.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Before I welcome Deborah up to speak next, she's our next pre-registered speaker, I am going to say that there's obviously a divide. Like I said, we received 90 letters. So we have heard that some people feel that they weren't approached, some people feel that but we're here to talk about the actual planning merits. We know there's a divide. There is going to be some time to send a letter forward telling us what, where you feel about how it was fair and how it wasn't fair. But what I think we can all agree on is every person at this point has been mailed this application with an address on Muldrew Lake. So the town has done a due diligence to make sure that everyone has heard about this. We expect people who are opposed. However, we're not here today to debate the merits of whether or not you heard about it or not. We know that there's a divide here. So everybody's going to have the opportunity, but we've heard it loud and clear that some people believe it wasn't fair, some people believe that it was fair. So now everybody's had the opportunity to receive correspondence straight from the town. So if you want to send us a letter on the planning merits, that's great. So with that, I will invite Deborah to speak. So Deborah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Great, yep.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen, I hope. Bear with me. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So, good afternoon, Mayor, councillors, planners, staff, and other people. Thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting. I'd like to start by acknowledging that a lake plan aims to balance the interests of individual property owners with the needs and objectives of a community, and that the purpose of a lake plan is to identify and protect the physical, environmental, and social values of the lake. Fortunately, both the town of Gravenhurst and the district of Muskoka have indicated support for individual lakes preparing lake plans, suggesting that both levels of government recognize that each lake in Muskoka has unique features to be considered. And I would agree that the future health of lakes is a cooperative effort between individual property owners, communities, and government agencies. Let me just get myself organized so I can move my slides. There we go. The overarching goals of the Muldrew Lake Plan are to preserve the natural environment as the dominant landscape feature, to minimize disturbance of natural vegetation to the greatest extent possible, and to maintain and enhance environmental health, water quality, and the visual character of the lake, and that this is best achieved through a series of land use policies as well as stewardship actions. These two are not mutually exclusive, but should be complementary. And it is important to know that this submission focuses primarily on land use policies. And you'll be happy to know that I'm not planning to talk about the content or the process because others are addressing it, and you have the final document in front of you. My goal today is to focus on the submitted lake plan through the lens of stewardship, which can be divided or can be defined as responsible and ethical management of natural resources and ecosystems through practices that promote their protection and sustainability. So how does this submitted lake plan seek to facilitate stewardship? Basically through three features: protecting the ribbon of life, decreasing overland runoff, and minimizing disruption to the shoreline. The ribbon of life is a descriptive term for the ecologic ribbon of a shoreline, which is the crucial zone between land and lake water. It supports 90% of the lake's biodiversity, and the best protection of the ribbon of life is a vegetated shoreline buffer. It is commonly accepted that 30 meters is the minimum necessary buffer needed to maintain biological functions and remove 80% of sediments from overland runoff. And according to numerous studies, vegetated shoreline buffers naturally protect the water quality of lakes by intercepting harmful pollutants, mitigate erosion, provide food and shelter, including for at-risk species, contribute to the beauty and economic value of waterfront properties, and protect freshwater ecosystems from impacts of climate change. The submitted lake plan recognizes that there are two features of Muldrew Lakes which make it challenging to meet that 30-meter minimum. The first is the natural topography, which includes steep rock faces, open rock barrens, and relatively narrow land masses surrounding a long and narrow lake. And the second is the recommendation that most of the development in the future will likely be redevelopment, as was indicated earlier. And given that the lake is already highly developed and most of the existing cottages date back to before 1970 and some as far back as 90 to 100 years, most are within that 90-meter buffer, I think it's fair to say that that is a unique feature that we need to address in our lake plan. We recognize that the need and desire to replace aging cottages is often accompanied by a desire for a larger cottage. And the lake plan does recognize that this future direction and seeks to put parameters around both the new and redevelopment activities relative to proximity to the shore in an attempt to preserve the health of the lake. Larger cottages often are associated with greater disruption of existing natural landscapes, removal of protective natural vegetation. Larger cottages mean bigger roofs with more runoff created, and there is tendency to use hardscapes, which results in less permeability of the soil, increasing the speed of runoff. So when larger cottages are built within the buffer, its protective features are diminished And the closer the cottages to the lake, the smaller the undisturbed natural vegetative buffer will be. So the science behind preserving the ribbon of life, I think, is solid. It's important to know that successful stewardship requires proactive long-term approaches. And I would ask, can this lake plan be seen as providing proactively contributions to long-term stewardship? In other words, is the timing right? Would you want this to be what you see at your shoreline or on your lake in multiple areas? Would you want to swim in this area? This is an actual shot of a blue-green algae bloom from 1924 or from 2024. So we know that we've had multiple blooms. Muldrew Lakes had its first documented bloom of blue-green algae in the fall of 2022. And I'm sure that you all know what I'm going to present now. Just a few facts about why this is important. Blue-green algae or cyanobacteria occur naturally in freshwater bodies. There are favorable conditions that provide those algae to grow into blooms, and these include slow-moving water, which as it relates to Muldrew, the nature of our long, narrow lake, and in fact, the whole lake, when the lake water levels are low, experience slow-moving and stagnant water. Higher water temperatures. While climate change factors are probably not directly under our control, vegetated shorelines actually provide shade and contribute to keeping water temperatures down. And finally, increased nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus in the water can be decreased by careful attention to issues such as runoff, and we appreciate the issues that have been raised by people regarding septic systems, etc. And I'll come back to that in a minute. It's important to notice that when blooms die, their degradation also uses up dissolved oxygen, and lakes depleted of oxygen are not healthy lakes. So while there are many types of blue-green algae, some produce harmful toxins that are released when the bloom dies. So it's not just an aesthetic thing, it's actually very important that recreational activities may be unsafe in the presence of blue-green algae. It's important to recognize that due to the risk of swallowing water, bloom material contacting skin, and breathing in water droplets that contain toxins. Primary contact activities such as those that involve getting your whole body wet, wading, swimming, windsurfing, water skiing, all activities that people on Muldrew Lake enjoy, pose a greater risk to people than secondary contact activities such as fishing and boating and canoeing. Children are more at risk for the health challenges presented by blue-green algae than adults because they spend more time in the water and they're also more likely to inadvertently swallow water. And while there are few reports of human deaths worldwide, there are many reports of deaths in animals, including pets and wildlife, that are attributable to blue-green algae. I think we can all agree that the presence of a blue-green algae bloom in a lake would be expected to decrease the desirability of cottage ownership on that lake and thus property values. So is the timing for this lake plan right? The submitted lake plan, as you've heard, has been in the works since 2018. And there has been both professional land use policy input as well as extensive outreach to all property owners since then. I don't want to bring the issue up again, but all cottages receive the dock drop, whether you're a member or not of the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association. I personally went to the town office and found everyone's registered address so that we could send letters to people about ask them to participate in the 2023 survey, which outlined in detail what the issues were being presented in the lake plan. And finally, the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association website has a completely wonderful outline of the lake plan and is available whether you're a member or not. So that's all I'm going to say. We've recently experienced blue-green algae blooms and are currently on the district's Section 2 E2 listing of lakes with recurrent blooms, which is of great concern to me and others on the lake. And we recognize, and I recognize, that the District of Muskoka is undergoing a comprehensive review and updating of its official plan, including sections of lake system health and environmental resiliency. But I would point out that many of their key proposed changes intersect with areas of our lake plan, not oppose it. These include sensitive surface designation of all lakes in the district, which will protect us. Preventing overdevelopment is one of their planned policy changes, and enhancing shoreline buffer requirements. Even changes to the frequency of E2 amendments, lake health screening, and certainly the proposed amendments to strengthen septic system health are important to us. So I'm very appreciative of the acknowledgement at various levels of the government in Muskoka that Muskoka lakes are valuable resources currently at risk. The Muldrew Lakes Lake Plan addresses the unique challenge that goes beyond the overarching district official plan, that being the likelihood that redevelopment within the 30-meter buffer will predominate on our lake for the foreseeable future. Now, one can ask, is the timing right? Is our lake already overdeveloped? There is no widely accepted standard to calculate overdevelopment. It's often a gestalt. One proposed measure has been the recreational carrying capacity, or RCC. And while there are acknowledged limitations to RCC, I think it's fair to say that a standardized measure of density could help support the gestalt that lake communities, including ours, have that their lake is overpopulated or overcrowded. The gestalt usually comes from activities accompanied by increased numbers of boats, people, and is often associated with grave concerns about boat traffic, boat safety, and light pollution. I would add that in the absence of a universally accepted measure, it is worth noting that using the formula of lake surface area over properties, that there are only 38 of 474 Muskoka waterways with a worse RCC than Muldrew Lakes. So finally, the submitted lake plan focusing on land use represents only one arm in the stewardship committee commitment to Muldrew Lakes, and in fact, only one portion of the overall lake plan that will replace the 2009 lake plan. Other stewardship activities are already ongoing, including water testing. We've been part of the Lake Partner program since the 70s and 80s. We do annual benthic testing, and we've recently joined the algae monitoring program. We've held educational events around water quality and testing, fire safety, and had a full webinar available for septic system education. Our lake participated this summer in the Love Your Lake program. So next spring, every property owner on Muldrew Lake will receive a personalized private assessment of their shoreline health. We supported and in fact sought out septic re-inspections by the town in 2023 as the 5-year plan had been disrupted by the pandemic and we hadn't been evaluated since 2016. There have been many communications by myself and others with the ministry, district health units, and participation in workshops and other stewardship-related meetings. So in conclusion, I leave you with this question. Is the timing right to take steps to preserve the health of our lakes, or is it urgent? Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. I will now ask for comments from Benjamin Thompson, who is participating. He was the first one in the group. Yep. Okay. He is not available. So I'm going to go to Rachel Carmichael Campbell. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm assuming you can hear me, so I'll just start. So my address on the lake is 2NM2. I'm speaking to you from Ottawa, Ontario. I just want to say thank you to everybody for your time and for hearing us at this meeting and for hearing us remotely. I'll keep this short. I don't think I'm saying anything wildly new, and I just appreciate the commitment to transparency and consideration for the protection of the area. I hope that when we speak and think about this, we can keep the well-being of the lake, local wildlife, and environment front of mind. I would echo everything Deborah just mentioned about the issues with blue-green algae and the importance of stewardship. So I wasn't part of the group running the consultation, but I'm speaking to say that I'm confident in the zoning and plan amendments that the Muldrew Lake Cottages Association has put forward in this lake plan. Specifically, I'm in favor of limiting the sizes of cottages to a maximum of 4,000 square feet, restricting the size of boathouses and outposts, recognizing the lake as vulnerable, and introducing a Muldrew-specific policy on recreational carrying capacity. My family has been on the lake since 1929, and I've spent every one of my 27 summers there. So I feel really lucky to have a deep connection to this place, and I just feel that we have a strong responsibility to stewardship and protection of the lake. We need to think in terms of 100 years or more. I'm almost done. So I understand that financial concerns and anxieties come into play when talking about property values and anything that would impact property values. So I don't want to downplay that. But to people who are concerned that restricting the sizes of boathouses, outposts, and developments to a maximum of 4,000 square feet would impact property values, I would just ask, what is the value of a shoreline property on a lake that you cannot swim in? Harmful algal blooms do, in fact, impact property values. There's one study by Wolf and Kleiber from 2016. They found that properties near lakes and specifically on shorelines of lakes that experienced harmful algal blooms experienced a 22% loss in value. That was on 6 lakes or lakes in 6 Ohio counties between 2009 and 2015. As people have just mentioned, we've already had harmful algal blooms on Muldrew. This is a sign that the lake is stressed and we have to act now to protect it. As has been mentioned before, Muldrew is narrow and shallow and very vulnerable to the impacts of nutrient runoff, rising temperatures, which contribute to algal blooms. We need to take this seriously and limit overdevelopment, which impacts the protective vegetative buffers. Personally, I would have been happy with the original proposal of a 3,500 square foot limit, but everybody's voices were taken into account. So I understand there is work being done in the District of Muskoka to update policies on lake system health, but it's important to put in limits to protect the lake while those processes are going forward and to look at this small lake specifically. So again, I feel like I'm not saying anything new, but I want to emphasize I'm in favor of a stewardship first approach to protect the water, birds, fish, and the other wildlife that we all benefit from. So I would ask that the council accept the amendments in question to protect the water, which is the thing that we all share. So thank you to everybody. Those are my comments. And I really appreciate everybody's time and consideration on this. I hope you're well.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'm now going to ask for Jay Goldlist to join us. Okay, welcome, Jay.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and for everyone's time. I'll try to keep my remarks briefer than everybody who's spoken before me. My family's owned 195 Haleway Drive B on Muldrew Lake since 1988. We are the second generation of ownership, and we're planning for transition to the third generation. Like many of the original cottages on the lake, we have a modest wooden 2-bedroom cottage. The site is heavily treed and wooded. In fact, it's very difficult to see our property from the lake. It's over an acre in total, mostly circular, with over 900 feet of water frontage. It's very similar to a small Muskoka island, except it's attached to the mainland. The shape and the topography of our property make it virtually impossible to conform with fixed shoreline setbacks for building structures. And currently, like many of the original cottages, we have a non-compliant structure, which we've not touched since our ownership in the 70s. And particularly in regard to septic setback and other environmental and government requirements, which we comply with, but make it very challenging in terms of any growth opportunity on the property. We are fully supportive of the goal of keeping the lake the same way we've enjoyed it and our parents enjoyed it, and hopefully our kids will be able to. We're very mindful of the environmental concerns. We appreciate the efforts to continue to protect the lake, but we are opposed to the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association Lake Plan. We support, as I said, a lake plan that fosters efforts to ensure the lake remains sustainable and enjoyable for all. We wonder if a lake plan shouldn't seek to impose building or development constraints under the guise of shoreline protections. Certainly not any constraints that lack clear and unequivocal support from a majority of stakeholders. We've enjoyed the property for nearly 50 years. We've not wanted to change the existing geography or structure, but the needs of our next generations may not be the same as ours. And while many might feel that the constraints that this lake plan imposes are reasonable, we're not sure that the lake plan itself is the place to suggest those constraints. We also are sensitive to the fact that there has been a lot of redevelopment on the lake, and seemingly there have been large structures built that don't conform to the original character of the lake. However, time moves on, and I can remember when there were people opposed to adding a road to give non-boat only access to properties. And I feel that the existing guidelines have been in place and work for some time, and they should be enforced, but not enhanced. The Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association Lake Plan characterizes the lake as a series of narrow waterways. While this is largely true, there are many segments of the lake where it is not true, such as where we are. And the notion of protecting the views from the lake don't apply to all properties. And so we'd like to have the matter studied more closely, engaging fully all the lake membership, and come up with a plan that isn't one size fits all and takes into the reasonable requirements of owners such as ourselves, who would perhaps in the future make modest enhancements, but may be constrained by the geography that our property has or that others have, but that still allow us to meet our future needs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldlist. We are going to now welcome Tim Luke. Please ensure your camera and microphone are turned on. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yep, absolutely. Can you see my presentation?
There might
No?
just be a bit of a delay. No.
No, okay. Let's go, oh, hang on, sorry. One error, rewind. Now you should be
Yes.
able to see it now.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship and councilors, for taking the time to be here today with us. My name's Tim Luke, 1286 Woodland Drive, Gravenhurst, Ontario, Muldrew Lake. I've been on the lake for about 44 years, served as vice president of the MLCA in 2018 and president subsequent in 2019 through 2021 through COVID years. And I've remained on the Lake Plan Committee to present time now. My presentation will be brief, but it focuses on the transparency through communication. I'll talk about the website, community feedback, surveys, doc drop, town halls, newsletters, emails, Facebook, so that everybody has a good understanding of how we've been communicating as an association. 10,000-foot view. If you notice, here's what we provided: over 40 points of outreach. Starting in 2018, you can see we ramped up to 20, up to 9 in 2022, 8 in 2023. So every year it got more and more communications. How did we do it? Well, we did it through a website. At the end of this presentation, I'll take you to that website. It is open to the public. It has always been open to the public. The Lake Plan tab has always been open to the public. All data and reports publicly made available enables transparency and supports informed decision-making. All documents were uploaded after publishing. Nothing is being hidden. Feedback from the community. Each of our communications, people were encouraged to send questions and comments to the secretary@muldrewlakes.ca. Other feedback was received via email, Facebook pages, and the Lake Plan Committee did respond to each person who had a question. Questions from all sources were compiled from all the meetings that we had into a question and answer that was also put on the website for everyone to see. Feedbacks from surveys. Both specific Lake Plan surveys were open to all cottagers on Muldrew Lake. You've heard the 188 and you've heard the 176, where it was just one survey per cottage. In fact, survey number 2, the if the MLCA did
Tim, are you there, Tim? We lost you. He has now disconnected.
Okay, so in the interest of time, we will circle back to Mr. Luke, but we are going to invite Mr. Goldlist. I don't know if anybody here texted with Mr. Luke. They can send him a note saying we're going to go back to him. So welcome, Clifford.
Your worship and council members, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I wanted to share my screen as well, if I could figure out how to do that, clicking on the button. Oh, okay. Let me see if this works. Yes. Okay. Hopefully my screen is alive and you can see it,
Yeah, we
which
can.
is a Google Maps image of Muldrew Lake, or a lot of Muldrew Lake. And can you see that?
Yes.
Great. I'm putting this up in large part to emphasize the point about my brother. That was my brother speaking earlier. So I'm not going to take up, or I hope not to take up too much of your time. I know there are other speakers anxious to speak. But this is to emphasize the point about Muldrew Lake not being the same throughout the lake. Yes, a good portion of it is characterized by narrow waterways, but there are other portions of Muldrew Lake that are similar to many other lakes with large bodies of water on it. And I make this point to stress that we are opposed to a one-size-fit-all approach as advocated by this lake plan. And we think a lot of these decisions on what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed should be left to the current framework that exists within municipal government. And I only have to point to the example, which was very interesting, of the application concerning 666 Deepwater Drive as an example of why a facts and circumstances approach, I think it can be much better than a one-size-fit-all approach that would result, I believe, if some of the policies advocated by the lake plan proponents, when I say lake plan, I'm talking about the lake plan being proposed by the Muldrew Lake Cottagers Association, if that were to be adopted by council. And 666 Deepwater Drive, our family has seen that property many, many times. I'm going to show you where we are before I get into my remarks. We're on this segment of land here my brother was speaking to that is shaped like an island. And it's opposite, by the way, John Goshaluk's property, which is an island here. And 666 Deepwater Drive is somewhere around here. And we boat by it every day in the summer when we're out on the lake. And it's a tragedy what happened there, and it's happened elsewhere. And you know, the whole dialogue about height measurements and what was versus what is, and the bedrock. I mean, there are characteristics of that property that are unique to that property. There may be other properties on the lake that share similar characteristics, but my point being that a one-size-fits-all approach, in my view, does not work. And embedding restrictive zoning and development and other such policies as part of a official plan, and I think is overreaching and is too rigid. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in here on our particular property, which is this property here. And like my brother was saying, it's very well treed, and you can see a bit of a roof of what is a wooden structure. And if I expand it a bit, and if I were to do this elsewhere, you can see comparisons with other properties which are much more developed than ours, which is another point I want to address about division and creating a framework on the lake where you have a group of haves and then a group of have-nots. If this were a lake plan were to be adopted, by which I mean that those that were anxious or had developed their properties in advance of a lake plan, and perhaps there will still be time for others to do so before any lake plan is adopted, to enhance their properties and build it out. As then you will have others who have chosen, for reasons, whether it's because of their lifestyles or their environmental propensities, that have chosen not to develop their properties. Then, like my brother was saying, times change, families move on, needs change, and then they would find themselves, I believe, and others you will hear from, unable to add to their properties in ways that many others have done. That's a serious concern in my book. I also wanted to say, although I'm mindful of what your worship said about not addressing process, but speakers can't help themselves, including myself, I just want to say this. These comments about extensive outreach the lake plan reflecting the interests of cottagers on the lake, everyone's voices having been taken into account. 76%, I believe that was the number, voted in favor of the lake plan. Okay, yes, Your Worship, I'm glad that we're all going to have an opportunity to address the town and council members. But to be clear, and the MLCA has said this, they got responses on, I think it was 170 in the first instance, 188 in the second. I'm told there are 400 cottage properties or properties on the lake. So that's far, I don't want people saying things that leave an impression that this is a will of a majority of stakeholders. It is not. I wrote in a letter, and I hope council members have the benefit of reviewing it. I'm sure they will, and taking into account submissions. It's dated November 19th. I'm not going to read it because I'm assuming that in due course, people will be going through these things. I trust that the planning department's office has circulated it to everyone. I just want to say a few things. I've made the point about how the proponents of the plan are characterizing Muldrew Lake as a series of narrow waterways. And I think I've made the point, and as my image here, available to all, can see, there are bodies, and this is not the largest on the lake, where there is plenty of room. There's plenty of room to land planes and have them take off on this lake, which is done many times. I've seen it. Everybody on the lake has seen that. So I understand there are some environmental. I want to stress the point about topographies being different on our own property. We have bedrock and we have sand. We have mostly trees. We have a beach. There are properties with cliffs and high shores, and frankly, proposals that say, your building height cannot exceed, what was the metric before? Is it 7.6 meters? I can't remember if that's the one in the lake plan. Or so many square feet. Let's talk about height. Taking that 666 Deepwater Drive proposal, the view from the lake of a property, or a building, I should say, that sits on a cliff, and the building heights associated with that property, and then comparing that to another property that has a structure on land that is close to beachfront, or basically not a high shore. I think the process should allow for different building heights for those kinds of topographical differences. I don't believe that the lake
Okay, can you hear us, Mr. Goldlist? That's his screen, so it's something at his end. Oh, it's our screen? Okay, so we'll just take a minute. I will just let the gallery know. Oh, he's gone. He's gone now. Oh, he is. Okay. I will let the gallery know after the next speaker.